Okay, here's a new one. In Dallas, 4 white folks have filed a federal lawsuit saying that the way the commissioners are set up there discriminates against white people. And I know people are going to be shocked. But, you know, I do think, and I think you know this, over the next 5 or 10 years, it's going to become part of the conversation as the number of white people start to shrink versus the expansion of minorities, Hispanics, African Americans, Asians, folks from the Middle East, whatever. That white folks are going to start saying, wait a second, if we become a minority, well, then why don't we have the same complaints that minorities do now?
Well, you have to understand that the 1964 Civil Rights Act that was signed into law by Lyndon Baines Johnson, then president, when he signed that into law, it was to help those who were historically discriminated against in the voting process, those who were stopped from voting because of their skin color. And then they had certain laws on the books called race codes that certain blacks, not all blacks in the South, had to pass certain examinations and tests before they could even have a right to vote. The problem with white people in Dallas filing that lawsuit, white people do not have a documented history of historically being disadvantaged in the election and the voting process.
You don't think the way school kids are selected now could be viewed as discrimination? You don't think that single-member districts can be construed as violating against someone else? Look, I got to tell you, it's this whole voting thing. You're talking about 50 years ago, black folks couldn't vote. Totally true, right? Totally wrong, totally horrible. But who's stopping anyone from voting today because of the color of their skin?
Well, then why are white folks in Dallas filing that lawsuit?
No, answer my question. Who is stopping any black person in this country from voting? I hear about voter suppression all the time.
There are many places in the South where white people feel that demographically they're now being outnumbered.
They are.
And so what they're doing, they are suppressing minority votes, because if they don't suppress them, the minorities will outvote them, and whites will now be today what they soon are becoming, the minority. And voting-wise, minorities will control the electoral process in America.
Let me ask you one question. And look, I'm not that guy, but why wouldn't it be fair for white people to have the same ethnic or racial argument that black folk or Hispanic folks? Look, I don't believe race should be part of anything. I don't believe race should be part of anything.
Let me tell you why. Because white folk don't have a history of being lynched going to the voting polls.
This is payback.
White folks don't have a history of their churches being bombed because you were teaching black people how to vote. White people don't have a history of having their homes firebombed because they went to a voting poll and voted. Here's the problem. This is what Minister Malcolm X said. This is a case of the chickens coming home to roost. Don't cry now when you got to sip from the same cup that you all gave us to drink from. So guess what, baby? Soon you got to deal with what you laid in the ground. Those seeds are growing now, and you'll reap what you sow.
Do you hear this? This is the problem, my friend, is that there's payback you want to do. That's the problem.
It ain't about payback.
Sure
it's about you all having to deal with the reality that what you sowed in the field, you shall reap what you have sowed.
The only problem with that is I ain't the guy who sowed it.
And guess what? You're going to enjoy those benefits that are coming, baby, whether you like it or not.